This is the Podcast in the Rough. Tune in every Friday for new, exciting, adventurous episodes. Welcome back to the Podcast in the Rough. This is episode 170. In the last episode, I tackled explicit content on social media and what that was all about and the dangers. However, today's episode marks the beginning of a new chapter for this podcast, and I'm really excited to tell you about it. I've spent a lot of time on this podcast sharing practical tips on podcasting and creativity. But over the years, I've realized that stories have the power to connect us in a deeper way. So after taking a little bit of a break from the podcast, I've decided that I'm pivoting the podcast to focus on my journey, lessons I've learned, and creative pivots that have shaped my career and my life. You can still expect to get actionable takeaways about growing your podcast and podcasting from start to success, but they're going to come through personal stories, and some professional and others deeply personal. So I welcome you to kick off this journey with me by listening to this episode all the way through as I share some stories and insights on basically how I got started and launched a successful career, a business, and found success in my own way. So I was thinking about this, like where to begin, because I'm working on a few projects. I'm working on a book, I'm working on my documentary, I'm working on some exciting things, and those are very detailed, and I got like papers everywhere, right? So it's like scattered. It's like, where do you start? And I wanted that to flow into my podcast. Since I'm working on these projects, it'd just be easier to talk about the journey as I'm building it elsewhere as well, and share my stories from my past and my successes and failures and all that good stuff. So I figured let's start off with my journey in my film career, as a videographer, as a YouTuber, right? And now moving and pivoting into a cinematographer. But what really caused me to say, I think I could do this. I'm going to jump on YouTube and I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to create something and let people tell me what they think of it, right? Like judge it. Like what gave me the courage to do that? Well, it all started with literally two people that lit me up, that I was like, I found myself watching their videos and I was like, what's that all about? The first person was Shay Carl, the Shaytards. He introduced me to this thing called vlogging. I never knew what that was. And I started watching his vlogs and I started just getting pulled in like everybody else into his personal life, his family, the things he was sharing. And I was like, this is cool. And I felt really connected. And then I started thinking, well, I want to do that. I want to document my life for so many reasons. I want to share my life on camera. I want to capture the moment. And I saw Shay Carl doing this. And I saw what it did to the subscribers, the followers. I also experienced it myself, like what it did for me. And then I started seeing that like you're able to capture these family memories that you can always look back on. And I said, let me figure this out. Let me dive into it. And it seemed simple. Just pick up, go get a basic camera. At the time I was broke, so I was like, let me get the cheapest camera I could get. We didn't have the phones like we do now. So, you weren't using a cell phone to do vlogging. And so I picked up a camera called a Kodak PlaySport, and that was my go-to. In fact, I would say 98% of my vlogs were recorded on that. So I think it cost me like $199 for this, and it was, it shot in 720 and 60 frames. It did 1080 in 30 frames. It didn't do any 4K or anything. I always shot in the 720 at 60 frames because it was smoother, even though it was less quality. This little camera was kind of cool. I mean, you didn't get to see yourself when you pointed the camera at you, but it was handheld, it fit in your pocket. You can pull it out, turn it on real quick, and hit record so you can capture the moment very fast. And it was waterproof, so that was kind of a plus. I could take it anywhere, which was cool because I did. I'd take it to water parks and I would get to vlog. And so I started capturing my life on YouTube. And I remember my first vlog that I did. So at the time, my wife was pregnant, she was working, I was trying to figure all this out to, be the entrepreneur. And at the time, I didn't have a direction on where I wanted to go. So I remember that day, she left the house and I was like, all right, I'm going to clean the house and vlog it. So my first vlog was literally like me cleaning the house. It was really lame. And I did that. And then my wife came home and we went out to dinner. I vlogged a little bit of that. And then I sat down at the computer and I figured, let me figure out how to edit. So I downloaded this software called, what was it called? It was Sony Vegas. Obviously I found a free trial and I kept doing the free trial for a while until I ultimately purchased it. But I learned basic editing and I started editing the vlog. So then I realized, well, I'm going to do a vlog a week. And then the vlog a week turned into 3 days a week. and then I did like daily vlogs. I was getting really good at like filming, like knowing how to capture the moment because it was all happening in real time. And then the editing, I spent hours and hours of editing. And I got really good at editing though too. So I was doing this for a couple months. And at the same time I was doing this, I also had other opportunities in the background that came from the vlogs. I started to meet people, and when I meet people, I'd vlog with them, and they were like excited about the energy and what I was doing on YouTube, and this is all very new. And so that attracted, a lot of different individuals and other entrepreneurs. And one of them was a gentleman who had his own radio station on I think it was Blog Talk Radio. And he offered me a position to do my vlogs, promote in the vlogs, the Blog Talk Radio show that he had, and I would get a spot. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I started I didn't know how to do this, but, I had a radio show. And so now I had an extra outlet. So I was doing the vlogs, I had the radio show, and I was talking, I was showing you all the behind the scenes. So literally in the vlogs, I would show you how like I'd pick up the phone and I would dial into this number, and then that would connect me with the dashboard on the computer, and other hosts could jump on and I could interview guests, and it's all through the phone. And that's how I created it. This is before I had, it was a virtual mixer on the computer, but it was all through the website. And then at the same time I was doing all this, I was actively searching YouTube for other ideas, and I came across this gentleman who made cinematic short films or fun action videos. And it was like, okay, so I'm watching Shay Cards, Shay Carl doing his vlogs. And then I'm watching this gentleman called Devin Graham. And he's running around, and first of all, I didn't know it didn't show him. I was watching the main video. So you see these people like getting slingshotted off a ramp in the summer into a lake, and they're getting wild and crazy, and they're having fun, and they're, rocking these cool sunglasses by Vu-Ray, and then there's a Vu-Ray promo in there, and it's very early branding. And I'm like, these guys are just having so much fun. And I was like, I want to do that. This is really cool. And I liked it, and I just watched it for months. And it wasn't until I saw a behind-the-scenes video of Devin Supertramp running around with this camera. And I was like, okay, so he's got that kind of camera? Okay, cool. And I'm like, well, I can't use my Vlogcam to create videos like that. I'm like, where would I even start? So I was like, whatever. I'm still enjoying the process. I'm not really thinking about it. I was getting obsessed with like, how did he get the camera movement so smooth while he's running? And it just appealed to me. And I was like, I really like this. So I started looking, and I was like, what is this thing he's holding? It's like the camera set on this black like pole thing, and it seemed to be balancing it. And he was running around holding it with a little handle. And I was like, what is this thing? I watched a whole bunch of behind the scenes until I got a closer view of what it said on the side of the bar. And it said Glidecam. I'm like, what is a Glidecam? And so I typed in Glidecam, and I discovered Glidecam.com. And they sold stabilizers. And I was like, okay, I need one of those. And I saw the price, and I was like, I think it was at that time it was like $7.99. And I was like, I can't even afford that. Like, there's no way. Like, it was out of my budget. And so I was like, so I went to a friend. I said, if I wanted to start making some videos like this, hypothetically, could you make a stabilizer like this? Like, you see how this works? And I'm like, let's figure out how to make one of these. So he made me a prototype, and I looked at it, and I didn't have a camera to put on it, but it seemed like it was balanced. And I said, thanks. He gave it to me, and I put it in my closet, and it sat there for months. And I stopped thinking about it. I was like, all right, I'm done. Continuously vlogging and doing my radio show. Then I was like, I wonder if I can get this gentleman, Devin Graham, Devin Supertramp, on the show as a guest. Like, he's growing. At the time, he had like 1 million subscribers. This was the early Devin Supertramp days. And I was like, regardless, it'd just be a cool dude to interview. I love his videos. Let's just interview. Like, that was it. I didn't think anything else about film and creating videos like that. I was just vlogging, radio show, and that was it. And again, I'm not making any money at this point. Like, my YouTube channel wasn't monetized 100% yet, and things weren't, they weren't like they are now either. They were a lot easier, right? A lot easier to get it monetized, but I just wasn't there yet. I didn't put it in motion. And so I reach out, and he says, yes, he'll do the interview. And this is still on my YouTube channel. You can go back and look. So I did an interview with him on the radio show, and I vlogged it. Like I vlogged getting ready, and then like we did the interview, and then I released the interview. And he called in from, I think it was in Hawaii, and he was filming a video. What was it? It was for Assassin's Creed. I think he was doing that one, or maybe a Far Cry video. One of those two. And it was for Ubisoft. And he was filming that, and it was like literally on location. We had a great interview. It was a great talk. And we had people calling in, asking questions. It was like the biggest show that I had, like, because people were calling in, the board was lighting up. I didn't know how to handle all the callers, but I started like hitting buttons. I was like, all right, let's let this caller through. And it was great. And there were some things he said on there. In the middle of this was, and I want to backtrack because I jumped ahead a little bit, like monetizing. I really didn't know about monetizing. This is why I said it wasn't set up yet. I learned about it on the show with Devin. When I was talking to him and he says, we get funding and I get paid on YouTube. And I said, wait, do you get paid on YouTube? I'm like, what do you mean? So I didn't know people got paid on YouTube videos. And that was the moment I was like, wait a minute, you get paid to make these videos on YouTube? And he's like, yeah. And then after the whole thing was over, we had a brief, 10 minutes thanking him for being on the show. And that was when I asked him, I said, oh, so you make a living on YouTube? He goes, yeah, it's incredible. He's like, if you like videos, you pick up a camera. I said, okay, if I were to start, what do I need? Like, what would you recommend that I jump into? And he said, get a DSLR camera, preferably a Canon. He goes, get that, give me a call. So he gives me his number. I literally go out the next day and I go to Best Buy and I'm like, apply for a credit card at Best Buy because I broke. And I get a camera with a stock lens, right? And while I was there, I had a friend of mine that wanted to get into this video stuff with me. And I said, you get the same camera, same stock lens. You invest too. Let's both. Then we have two cameras. He said, okay. So he got a camera, the Canon. It was the Canon T3i, the Rebel T3i with the stock lens. I think came with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. And so we get this camera, we come home and I'm looking at it, I'm trying to film, I'm recording stuff and I get a chip and I'm like, okay, awesome. And then I called Devin. I said, all right, Devin, I'm filming, but my videos, obviously, okay, they're no comparison. But I'm saying, like, your colors pop and these colors not popping. Like, what do I got to do in editing? He's like, it's not so much editing. He's like, let me give you my settings. So he gave me his camera settings. And so I dialed in the camera and I really, in the picture profile and I saved it. And so now my colors popped. My sharpness was low because it wasn't too sharp because it would make it look bad. And he told me what frame rate to shoot in. I didn't know anything about frame rates or anything like that. But remember, I've been doing editing on vlogs and I was capturing moment with vlogs. So I had some skill now with vlogging and editing. And so I tell my friend, I said, let's set up a shoot. Let's do our first shoot. Let's do it. Let's get a bunch of people together and make some cool things. And so we did. We got together and we made a video. It was action-packed. We were running around. We're sweating. We're getting our exercise in. The camera's all shaky, and I get back and look at the footage and I'm like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And here's the things we do like, the things we don't like. And the colors popped. And it didn't quite look like a Devin video, of course, right? But like there was the look that I was going for. And it didn't look like that, but it was still exciting and fun. And then I was like, wait a minute, maybe it's the stabilizer. Let me go back to my closet and get that stabilizer we made. And I put the camera on it and I ran around the house. I'm like, well, it kind of stabilizes it. I guess this is how this works. And it kind of swayed. So it really wasn't stabilized. Looking back, this thing would never work. But somehow I made it work, right? It looks ridiculous. You might be able to see some of the behind the scenes on this on my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/ZT Films. Scroll way down or somewhere in a playlist. There's a music video I did called Run for our band called Habit. And that's like literally like we were doing these videos and then this band was like, hey, do you do band videos? I said, yeah, I do. And we use this thing. I mean, I'm shortcutting a lot of the things that happened in that time span, but just to keep it short for this podcast. But basically that's where I got started on my second YouTube channel, which became ZT Films. And I started this career that I have. Like I didn't even know I was going to get into this. And this is what I created because of that, because of Devin, because of Shay Carl. Let's fast forward a little bit because I started getting some money. I started figuring out how to monetize my videos and I started getting some brands that would send me their stuff and sponsor me and that would pay for things and cover, make things work better and make better videos. And then I found myself having just enough money to go get a Glidecam. It was probably about later on the same year that I was able to fund this. And so I ordered my very first Glidecam. I ordered the Glidecam HD 2000. And I get this thing, and again, I don't know what to do with it. Put a camera on it. Looking back at some of the videos, I actually had the Glidecam backwards, like the adjuster knob was facing the lens and not facing the back. It was all backwards. I didn't know what I was doing. But I figured it out, and I grabbed this Glidecam, and I went out there to start doing it, and I called Devin up, and I couldn't get him anymore because this time his career started really skyrocketing, so I sent him an email. I said, how do you use this thing? And nothing. And then it was like spring. Actually, no, it wasn't spring. It was getting colder, so it was closer to October. And here he's doing this event that was like 2 hours from me. and it was with Mountain Dew, and it was a slip and slide launch ramp. And I was like, I got to be there. So I literally heard about it that morning, and I drove out. Again, I vlogged all of this. And I show up with my Glidecam, my camera, and I bond with Devin, and we learn a lot. We talk a lot. We create this crazy video. We're a part of it. I'm in it. It's scary. It's fun. It's all types of everything. It was just a really just a magical moment for me. And I look around, and there's like 3 other people with a Glidecam. I was like, okay. And I got to see his camera up close. I'm like, wow, what is that? And he was like, at the time he was shooting with a 1DX, and I saw his lens, and he says, you should get this lens. So I got the 16 to 35 millimeter lens. It's a Canon lens, f2.8, and that set me back $1,600. Again, at the time I was still broke, so I made some money, but not enough for a lens now. So now we're talking $1,700. So I got this on a credit card, and it took me like a year to pay off. Like it was, I was grinding at the beginning. Those are the early days of my career. So I'm vlogging and like I'm filming, and I'm going out there, and I'm just trying to figure out how Devin's doing things. And then eventually I just kind of I figured my own thing out, and I started focusing on locals, like local businesses, and then like fun things and brands and people, bringing people together and just going out there and having fun. And my partner with the film, and he had his camera, and he grew his little arsenal, and he would do like tripod shots and handheld shots, and I would do Glidecam shots and focus on that, and then GoPro shots, of course. And we started really having fun. I was getting better at editing, and I'm making better videos. And now I got this lens, and it's starting to look a little bit like Devin's, but it's not, because I'm using the Canon T3i. And then I started getting big brands. I started shooting, huge, expensive videos and big brands with this Rebel T3i. And it wasn't even like they didn't care about the quality. They just loved the action. No one questioned the quality. And to this day, no one's ever questioned the quality, even though I've now advanced into more high-level, pro-level professional cameras. And I geek out over this stuff, right? But at the very beginning, so I'm doing vlogs weekly, like a couple days a week, sometimes daily. I'm editing those, and then every weekend I had a shoot set up. Like that's how I grew so fast. I started growing my channel. I remember I had 20 subscribers on the ZT Films. I had 100 on the vlogs, and then I had all of a sudden I had 300 on ZT Films, and still sitting at 200 or 150 on the vlogs. And all of a sudden I started growing faster on the ZT Films. And then he would kick back because people are like, oh, I want to see behind the scenes. I'm like, oh, well, you got to go over to the vlogs end to see the behind the scenes. And so then it started growing on both channels, and both were monetized. And so I started making more money, and I started getting more exposure. And you can literally watch my career unfold if you were to go back and listen and watch all my vlogs that are on my youtube.com/Zebulon Thomas, which is where I was putting this podcast, but decided to take it off because I'm making some pivots in my career, my shifting, and things I want to share. But the vlogs are going to stay there. They're always there. It's a very vulnerable time in my life. And I say that because I tried to do vlogging recently, and I don't have the time for it. 2, it feels very awkward, and it's going to feel awkward. 3, I just don't know if I want to share that much of my life personally now that I have some success and I'm a little more established and I've kind of done all that. And it sucks because looking back when you're vlogging, you get to look back at your life. You don't get to experience it when you're vlogging because you got to make a decision. Do I want to experience this moment, or do I want to vlog this moment? And it's hard to do both. It's really hard to do both because that is attached to editing afterwards. So you capture the moment, and then you relive it in the editing, and then you watch it. And the pros and cons to that. But that got really overwhelming. But the reason why I stopped vlogging was because the ZT Films career, it turned into a career now, made money. I was able to, establish an income, and it took all my time and focus, and I couldn't vlog anymore. And then it also got complicated because some of the brands and businesses I was working for were now next level, if you will. And so I wasn't allowed to vlog most of this stuff because it was NDAs, or it was private and secret, or it was trade secrets and things like that. And so I just accepted that, and slowly the vlogs stopped. And I stopped doing that, but people were already focused on ZT Films, and I had a great following, and I grew this thing up. And next thing I know, I'm 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 subscribers. And I'm like, this is great. And then I shifted away from ZT Films on YouTube channel because I got so caught up in the background of these big businesses that I said, the videos don't need to go on my channel anymore. These are not brands trying to get exposure through my following anymore. And I don't know if I would say I got distracted, but I definitely pivoted and just kind of stepped away from the YouTube and went after where the money was. I was like, well, this is where the money's at. I get to be creative and get paid for that, and this feels right, and I want to do that. And this went on for years, and occasionally I'd come back to YouTube and make a cool video, and it would get likes and shares, and it was fun. But I was like, now I'm the breadwinner, and I've built this little empire, and I have this company, and I've parted ways from, my friend that started doing this with me. We kind of went our separate ways. He went into photography, I guess, and went into other things, and the original founders with me all split up. And so I had ZT Films, and that was basically just me. It was my brand, and that's what I delivered to companies, and that's how they hired me. And they wanted my expertise in how I was doing these videos, because I had a secret something was causing things to go viral. I'd shoot a video for a brand, and even though it would do good on my ZT Films, but it would explode in their network, in their marketing, in their realm, it would just blow up, and it would sell hundreds of thousands of dollars of their products and brands and services. And so people started, this word got out. And even though I was marketing myself going, hey, can I, and I had a lot of no's. No, we don't want to, we're not interested in your videos. But it's funny because those same people that I went to, like, hey, you want a video? I'm doing it for this much, because I didn't know how much to charge until the bigger brands came through and said, we're going to give you this budget. And I'm like, well, that's all mine? We'll use some of it for the video, but the rest is yours. And I'm like, whoa. And then those brands that I reached out to say, hey, I'd like to do your video. Hey, can we get a video from you? I'm like, yeah, this is the price. Whoa. Well, you should have grabbed me when I was naive and didn't know this thing. Should have grabbed me before I knew my value, right? Like, that's how that works. And so then in that moment when I felt that and I realized that, and they still paid, now they just paid more. I said, you know what? I'm going to open the door for anybody who wants to jump on this bandwagon now, but you got to jump on now at this point. And I'll still keep the price. So you jump on now and support me from the beginning, and you'll never have to worry about it. I'm going to take care of you as long as you take care of me. And I had a few select brands that did that. Go Scope is one of them. It was great. They sent me a bunch of stuff. They continue to support me. It was awesome. And we did a lot of great things. It's been amazing. And then let's fast forward a little bit. Years go by, because I started the career in 2010. I started vlogging, like really getting exposure in 2011. So 2011. By 2018, I now have this business. And I remember in 2018 that I was reaching out to Glidecam, and I was like, man, I need to get more Glidecams. I need to be a part of this. And I reached out to him. I said, hey, do you, I called it was a front desk lady. She's really nice. And I said, does Glidecam do sponsorships? So I'm looking for a sponsorship. And I was desperately seeking an extra sponsor because I already had one and I needed another one. But I wanted a core one that I could believe and get behind, One that was like the foundation to my business, because I had got this Glidecam, and that was the foundation for me to create all the crazy fun videos. And so she was like, no, Glidecam, we don't really sponsor, but I could patch you through. I can pass your information along type of thing. And I'm like, okay. So I put the phone down, and then I got a phone call from the marketing director, VP of sales and marketing, and he calls me up, leaves a voicemail because I missed the call. And here they were actually looking into all my videos for a while, and they had started selecting these world-renowned Glidecam masters, people that showed, the Glidecam and the use of the Glidecam at its professional state, at its best, using the Glidecam and mastering that. And on that list, when I saw this, because I heard this say, call us back, we'd like to talk to you about this. So I called them back, and they were like, we more than just a sponsor, we want to make you a Glidecam master. Like, your work is exceptional, and like it's amazing, and like we love what you do. And I was like, wow, like that means a lot. This is incredible. And on the list was Devin Graham, right? Chad Bonanno. I think I say Chad. I hope I say your name right. I always get that wrong. And then they selected me. So here I am as a Glidecam master operator, world renowned, noticed in the industry by Glidecam Industries with Devin, Chad, and it's me. And then later they brought on Ron Cannon, really exciting individual. Hopefully I'll have him as a guest on the show again. I've had him on once before. Great guy. And he's been super successful too in doing what he's doing. I love his work. I was just so excited about this newfound, I guess you would say, accolade, that it did bring me a little more leverage in my career, because now I could post that up on my website. I can share it as an award, if you will, and companies would then search me and see this on Glidecam's site, and we work together in the optimization and all that stuff that we understand now. It was working. And then I got booked for bigger jobs, and I got more opportunities. And I remain humbled because I'm a Glidecam master, but I was like, okay, you give me this title. Like, do I feel I've really mastered it? I'm like, well, by the scope of when you look at this stuff in my videos, yes, absolutely. Unknowingly, I mastered this skill using the Glidecam camera stabilizer. However, in my mind, with such confidence given to me, and the people looking at me and I wouldn't say praise, but just like the gratitude. And it pushed me to say, oh no, I really want to master this thing. If you're going to give me the title, I want to own it. I just want to have a title. Like I want to really feel like I've mastered it. And mastery is something you go into and there's no end to it. It's always evolving. So you're always mastering. So I decided to really get busy with the Glidecam and take it serious. Like, what am I doing that makes things different? Like, what am I doing with this thing? Start to pay attention and become aware of how I'm using this when I'm on the field instead of just running and like subliminally knowing how to manage this thing. It's like it's all part of my body and like my movement. And so I started paying attention to this. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to create a course. And so I created a course, and I did the course, I didn't create the course so we could like make all this money. I did the course for two reasons. One, I did it so that I can bring awareness to Glidecam and other filmmakers and teach them how to use this thing and why it's so important, because with this thing, I started a career and I wanted them to understand how fun this is. Like, pick up the Glidecam. If you're ready to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast like a pro, I've got something just for you. The ultimate guide to setting up and growing your podcast. This is the step-by-step blueprint you need to build a successful podcast. From setting up your studio to attracting listeners and making money. And here's how you can get it. Join the Podcast Success Secrets Mastermind. Visit thepodcastintherough.com/learn or head over to buymeacoffee.com/intherough and grab it in the extra section. Don't wait. Grab your copy now and start growing your podcast today. And so I created this course to do that so they can learn how to do it, learn how to have fun to do it, and understand where it can take them. And the other reason why I did it is so I can master my skills and document my mastery. Like, so I can say, well, not just doing this, this is how I do it. And then obsess over how I do it. And then make like a PDF on how I did it. And then a video how I did it. And then teaching you how I do it so you can do it too and do it better. And that's really why I created this thing called Glidecam Mastery. And we pushed this course out, and I still have the course, and it's incredible. And they love it, and they've given me their critiques about it, and I did really well, right? And I had amazing support from Glidecam Industries, and I got to use all the Glidecams now, right? Like, and even as a cinematographer moving into films, I'm loving the Glidecam stabilizer connected to the X10. It's a vest so with an arm on it, and it really lets you just really do something different. It's not the same as run and gun with the Glidecam. Like, I do have limited movement, but now I have more professional movement because I'm doing films. And when you do films, it's a little different, right? You just want it to be a little different. And so I have limited movement, but I have incredible flow and stability that really gives you a new cinematic look. And I'm obsessed over that, even if it's just slightly. And allows me to have a heavier camera too. Because now I'm using the camera that's a lot heavier, right? I built out a cinema rig, and I just recently picked up a 1DX Mark II, which I'm really excited about. That's a pivoting point for me in my career, because I was like, oh, Devin had the 1DX. I'm going to get that camera one day, and they just had the Mark II, so I got the Mark II now. And it's a little heavier camera, but it's phenomenal. It's like amazing. Up until now, I've been shooting on a crop sensor, and like all my past videos, I love them, but I wish they would just had just a little bit more quality, a little bit more of the sensor. And I finally now have a full frame camera, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And my career's shifting too, and rightfully so. But so this is how I got started building, myself on YouTube and social media. And listen, like, as I got bigger, and remember, I stepped away from ZT Films a little bit, like a YouTube channel. As I got bigger, focusing on these things, and like, when you make more money, you have to make more decisions, and then you're growing your family, right? So you're growing your family, being a family man, and you're supporting your family, and then you end up buying a house, and you're expanding, and like there's all these opportunities, and it's just your career can go anywhere that you want to take it, but you got to be careful. And we're going to get into that in later episodes here on the podcast, but. Right now I want to focus on like where I got my foundation. And because I did that and I stepped away, I had some companies that would be like, hey, you don't have a big following. I'm like, of course not, because Have you have you not read? Like, did you not Google me? Did someone not chirp in your ear and tell you who I am? Not like ego, right? But has someone not told you what we're doing here? Like, it's not about me. It's not about my social media following. You do know when we work together, what the videos do, like what I create, what it does for you, what it can do for you. And then, those brands would obviously be like, a big following. But they would quickly come back because they'd be like, oh, 3 partners to our left or right had a video blow up from you. Now we understand. Okay, you ready to work? Let's get to work. Because there's a secret sauce in a lot of different, content creators and filmmakers. And when they find out their thing, right? Like, that's why you pay for that. That's why they're there. That's why you work with them or collaborate with them. And over the years, like I would get frustrated by these little, inquiries about my social media following. And I was like, ugh, this is so weird. It's like, so I'm like, you're not qualified to work with me. That's basically what I wrapped up. So I'm like, I'm not working with you. If you're asking that question, you're completely out. I don't want to hear anything you have to say because it's messing with my success of what I do, like my confident level. I'm not worried about myself growing. I don't want to be famous. I just want to do my thing. And then it shifted. I had to shift my state of mind into of like, hey, you know what? If you're really concerned about my following, I'd love to collaborate with you someday in the future if you ever decide to shift. And that was the great shift because it gave me a better positive energy towards the other company and the brand that was really concerned about my following. And then later when they would warm up to the idea and they would really look at what I'm doing, they'd be like, let's give it a try. There's no hard feelings. And it was like, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And then I became just more grateful for what I do. And I'm so glad I found a point to pivot in that career and found that time to do that because later on, and we're going to get into this later on, I found myself with some pretty heavy hitters like in the world, in the industry of brands and entrepreneurs and celebrities. And having that gratitude grounded me and gave me more, like ownership and knowledge of my value and respect for my value, that there's a lot of things that I turned down, not in a negative way, but just turned down because it didn't feel right, it didn't meet my value, and I already know what I can do. I already know what I'm capable of doing. And then sometimes I would take the challenges. I would take those things on because they were challenges. I would take them even if they were like, maybe not paying me enough or if it was an opportunity that I like wasn't sure about. But I would do it because I got to a point in my career where I had to challenge myself because things were getting a little easier. And I was like, no, I don't want to stay easy. I want to master, go back to mastery. And I got to keep using the Glidecam in all these different industries and markets and for things. And like, it was so exciting because I see my friends going, I don't know what gear to bring. And I'd like walk right by them. I'd be like, hey, you know what? I don't need to think about my gear. I already know what I need. Glidecam's always coming with me. If I can't do a shoot using the Glidecam, I'm not interested. And companies would then be like, hey, you going to show up with that cool thing? It's called a Glidecam. Yes, I'm going to show up. It's like, awesome. We can't wait to see it. And then I'd do these videos and like, it was right in the middle. And that's when my career blew up even more. And I wish I could have vlogged these parts, but in a way, I'm glad I didn't because sometimes those were more stressors than they were something I want to look back on, right? Like bigger companies paying bigger money and bigger opportunities and meeting so-and-so and like having these, cool opportunities behind the scenes and capturing the moment and working with other filmmakers and creatives at the time. And it started to get like a really good point at the top there where I was like, collaborating and making new friends from what it felt like. And then it became complicated because, they'd be like, we want you to, say this in a video. We like other brands would be like, we want you to tell the celebrity that we're sponsoring you. And it kind of got dicey until I had to figure out like, oh, well then if you want that opportunity, then you need to make your branding more, shown on my apparel or in my equipment and make it something that comes up as a topic of subject, not because I brought it up, but because I'm using it. Like that's how you get that. Like I can't just go up to a celebrity and say, hey, have you tried this? You gotta check this out. Like it's not a conversation you bring up in those high profile environments. But instead, if I am using a piece of your equipment or something, like we'll use the Glidecam for instance, like I'm filming this celebrity and like take 4 or 5 and there's a little bit of downtime in between the take and the celebrity, she's like, what is this thing you're using that you're running around with? This looks cool. I'm like, yeah, check it out. I'm like, I give it to her and the celebrity holds it, and it's like heavy. And she's like, so I just balance this and now it's like just a fun little thing. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Take a video of your friend or take a video of me, like film the set here. And like, she's running around filming and she's like, this is actually kind of cool. I'm like, I could totally do this stuff. I'm like, yeah, you could. It's great. And so what's it called? I'm like, oh, it's a Glidecam. See, that's how you get that because I'm using the product and it's in the environment and it's a natural, organic. Everything I do is organic. You can't force this stuff. And plus, when you're in with the right people, the moment you try to sell something, you're out. So this was look, what is it? Glidecam. Cool. And I'd leave it at that. That's really cool. And then she, later on in the interview, in the video that we were creating, she's like, hey, where do I get one of those? Oh, glidecam.com. She puts it in her notes. Now, what she does after that, I don't know, right? I don't know if she ever ordered one. But I will say this. It went to her phone, and it was not a sale. It was like, that's really cool. And then, like, months later, we had like a dinner, and hey, this is the guy who filmed that video. So cool. I'm like, so this thing, it was a Glidecam, right? I'm like, yeah, it's Glidecam. She's like, that thing is so cool, and starts talking about the product. See, that's when I was like, all right, other people, other companies and brands and sponsors are going to be a part of this. I now have a sponsorship program for that. You pay a fee, and you give me your product, and if I have the opportunity to use that product in that environment that I see fit, only then and then will you get organic exposure, and it could lead to something big for you. But you're paying the money because you're not able to get that access. I now have limited access to things that a lot of people don't have, and that's why I'm offering these small sponsorships. But again, even that have to be qualified because it's not just anyone getting through the door there, right? So now you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reason and you have the right brands aligned for the right thing. So I'll literally look at my year and go, these are all the clients and projects and creative things and creative people that I'm working with and some of the trips and travels I have planned. This is the stuff going on. Now I'll look at the market and I'll reach out and go, hey, I'm doing this and this and this. Your product and brand or whatever service fits with what I'm doing, and there's an opportunity to check out my sponsorship program. And we do that. And it's a new business for me. It's great. It's been fun. So imagine that. You go from vlogging, and you're watching Shay Carl, and then you're watching Devin Supertramp, and you pick up a Glidecam, and you start this career that you never thought you could do. Like, it was not my path. Like, I used to look at video, I'm like, I would never want to edit. That sounds just too hard. And you do all this stuff, and now you have this empire that you built, right? And yes, there's ups and downs and big losses and big wins, right? And then you find this new business model, and now you're pivoting and shifting and moving into cinematography, making movies, and my photography business is blowing up, and I love photography now. It's a different side of using that camera. Same gear, different purpose, different feeling, different vibe, different art. It's amazing. And you're using YouTube, and I'm using YouTube now. I'm using YouTube to do a little bit of creative stuff on my Zebulon Thomas, but ZT Films, I'm putting my creative work there, right? And I'm bringing that back more. And I got this podcast now in the podcast. And what I say to really give you like a full nice takeaway is that you really have to create a vehicle that you're going to get in that's going to take you to where you got to go to open the doors. A vehicle that is very easy to get in and out of, if you will, per se, that can really unlock opportunities and your potential and give you the opportunity to practice and master something. At the very beginning, that was vlogs for me. Then it was the Glidecam and YouTube, right? Like making those kind of videos. And those were my two things. The vlogs gave me the, opportunity to vlog, and someone asked questions, what do you do? Well, I do this, I do films. You should come to one of my shoots. And then we're shooting behind the scenes. It all meshes together. And then when that became overwhelming and then I became successful in the ZT Films, it became podcasting. I can't pull up the camera with some of these high profile events, but what I can do is talk about them, share my experiences, and start a podcast. So I started slow. I started really, really slow with this podcast. We're at this episode now, episode 170. I really didn't get professional till until episode probably 124, right? Like episode 124 is when I really felt like, around that time and that episode is where I felt like I've really got this podcast stuff figured out. But it's funny because all these opportunities, they came through from my film. And then when I was with these celebrity events and entrepreneurs, I started working on podcasting and bringing films. Like it was like filming a podcast. And then I was like, I love podcasting. I learned podcasting through filming. And then I got people successful with podcasting and I started my own. And so now this has become my new vehicle. Like this is the vehicle that allows me to advertise and market and speak and build a community and, get creative and explore and introduce new people that I would never talk to and bring them on and build friendships and bonds and relationships and network. And now my network is huge. It's huge. But again, I get to remain, have my private life and remain behind the scenes. And I love that. I love going more behind the scenes and being more powerful behind the scenes than powerful up front and having all these followers. I'd rather be really deeply connected with network. And if I want to make a phone call, go anywhere I can. If I want to make a move, I can. If I have an idea, when I team up with someone, I can make the call, I could do it. I see someone doing cool stuff that's a big celebrity or something like, hey, I think I know a guy who knows a guy who knows someone who knows a girl, blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, I'm making a collaboration video or we're doing something behind the scenes. I have so many projects that are coming out that you don't even know about that have already been done. They've been done for a year. They're coming out. And I'm just sitting back and I'm rebuilding myself. I'm building my empire. And it feels freaking amazing. And I wanted to share that with you because that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing on this podcast. I'm pivoting because I want to share more. And I can't vlog it. I don't want to vlog it, but I can share more through the podcast. And listen, all of this is to share with you, what are the challenges I've had in my life? How did I build myself? How did I rebuild myself? What broke me? What picked me back up? All these different things. How did the industry affect me? What's the impact? And I want to share this over the course of this podcast because we're going to be talking about burnout. We're going to talk about success. We're going to talk about what path you need to take, how to pivot, when to pivot. What happens when, the world shuts down, right? Like, what do you do? Oh, because you've been grinding this opportunity that you didn't even know was kind of floating out there. It hooks something for you. You had your fish out there, your fishing line, and you didn't just hook a little fish. You kind of stepped away to make a sandwich, if you will, and you came back and you had a big fish and you lured it in. You're like, what is going on here? And next thing you know, you're making lasting impact for big people. And it's something different. And I want to share those stories with you because this is all part of my documentary that's coming out. This is all part of my book. This is all part of me healing and becoming a better person and just really finding more certainty and stability in my life, in my career. So I really hope that these stories really, like this first one, I should say, I really hope this impacted you in some way and get you thinking about what's the vehicle you can create? Where can you start? What can you look back on? Maybe you're going to vlog. I don't know. But I really hope that these successors that I share with you, knowing that they came from me not knowing what I was doing and trying to figure it out. And then when I figured it out, I decided to master these areas of my life and my business and my tools so I become better and stay in this position to keep growing and always respect my value in others and know that value. So that's really, really important. One of the other things I want to share is one of my biggest lessons that I've learned is that success isn't a straight line. It's really not. It's not a straight line. It's up and down. It's left and right. It's all over the place. And as much as your vision might be clear, the line is definitely not going to be straight. I always say, you might think of where you want to go. Don't focus on I got to go from here to there. Don't focus on how you're going to get there. If anything, just enjoy the process between there and enjoy the journey. But if you try to figure out all the steps, it's going to make it very challenging. So I usually just pick, I want to go there, and I'm going to go there. I don't care what's in my way. I'm going to blow through it, dig under it, climb over it, whatever it is, and I'm going to enjoy the journey. And I'll figure it out as I go. That's how it works for me. It might not work the same for you. Maybe you're more, where you have to you have to plan things out. But I see an object, I see a goal, and I go for it, and that's what I want. And I speak to myself. I give gratitude the entire time and enjoy the process. And so looking back, I just realized that, mastering one creative skill is the thing that gave me the confidence to explore other skills and other opportunities. And that is something that I want to encourage you to think about. Where are you being called to pivot? Where are you being called in your life to make your life really impact others and have a big purpose? Where are you being called to take uncomfortable action? Where are you being called to make a new level? Where are you being called to do the things that are outside of your comfort zone? Go challenge that. Go face that. Go do that. And I want you to take a moment right now, and I want you to reflect on your own journey. What's one creative or professional moment that defines your path? And what lessons did you learn from it? Think about that. What's one creative professional moment that you've had that has defined your career, your path, who you are? And what lessons did you learn from it? And you take all that, and now you have something to build from, and you got to keep going. Listen, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really didn't plan on doing an episode today, but I had to get out of my funk. was like, I can't take a long break. I can't leave you hanging that long. I was like, let's bring it back. So I want to hear from you. I want you to share your story or your creative pivot or a defining moment that happened to you in your life. Share it with me. Go to the podcastintherough.com and go to contact me and just drop me a message on what has been your pivoting path. Like, what is it? Like, what is something that's defined you that you want to share with me? Because I would love to know. It really just lights me up to know that other people out there just going for it and creating that opportunity and doing taking the uncomfortable action, if you will. Because it's not comfortable to take these actions. It's like, what is this? This is new. But it gets exciting, it gets addicting. So I want you to think about that. And if you let me, I'd love to feature your story on the episode sometime and talk about it. I'd love to do that. Maybe even bring you on the show as a guest. Something to think about. The next episode 171, I have these planned out now, what I'm talking about, to open the door for me to share the stories. I'm going to be sharing with you what it was like working with a major brand like Mountain Dew and Canon and Adobe, and the lessons I've learned in creating videos for them and working with them and building brands and different things. And then we're going to move into some of the high-profile entrepreneurs and celebrities that I've worked with and share some of those, high-stakes movements, pivoting actions and things you had to do that all of my mastery was put to the test, if you will, at those pivotal points and how I got through it and what I learned from it. And I can't wait to share those moments with you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the podcast. Please comment, rate, review. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time for another great episode of the Podcast in the Rough. Take care. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a star rating and a review. It would help us reach more people and get them to learn about the Podcast in the Rough. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it.